So it is a little bit after 11. They're getting ready to shut the doors, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Mary McCarthy. I am the president of your management team. It is a for-profit small business consulting firm where I focus specifically on developing startup ideas. You've got that really great idea, now what do you do with it? It's entering its 6th year of operations, and then 2 years ago I launched a nonprofit called the Women's Small Business Accelerator that focuses on mentoring and guiding women business owners. So I have been in the business arena obviously for a long time, and I will tell you, it wasn't until I had a networking event a couple of years ago about how do you register and get certified as a woman business owner that I thought, you know what, maybe I should get certified myself. Anybody here ever tried to get certified for anything? Okay, so let me tell you, after about 3 weeks of working with PTAC, and they were my very best friend, I decided I couldn't take it any longer and I passed it on to somebody else in my office. It was very time consuming and there was a lot of information if you've gone through it. But in the long run, if you take the time, you stay focused, you get it done, you have an opportunity to do business with the government. And they are the #1 employer. They really can take a small business to the next level if you can secure a contract. So what we're going to do is I'm going to let each of the panelists talk a little bit about what they do, their organizations, and then we're going to open it up for questions from you guys. We have 2 individuals that are from organizations that can talk to you about how they can help you. And then we have 2 business owners that's going to talk a little bit about how going through the process of working with the government really has benefited their business. So we're going to start at the far end of the table. Please introduce yourself, your organization, and tell us what your organization does, please.
My name is Bonnie Marino. I am the certification manager for the Ohio River Valley Women's Business Council, and we certify women-owned businesses so that the corporations recognize that they truly are a woman-owned and woman-operated business. We also, in September of 2011, became one of 4 third-party certifiers for the federal government's women-owned small business certification. So we can help you on both of those fronts. The paperwork for both of those certifications is very similar. The benefit of becoming WOSB certified through ORV is you do not have to take the time to upload all of your financial information to the repository. It stays confidential in our office.
Does everyone know what WOSB stands for?
Women-owned small business.
You always want to make sure everybody understands all the acronyms. They love them, don't they? Okay. So you help specifically women
Women-owned businesses.
get certified.
Yes,
okay. And Jill?
My name is Jill Nagy Reynolds, and I work with the SBA Columbus District Office. That is the Small Business Administration. Just want to ask, I see a lot of new faces, which is unusual when I do these panel discussions. So how many of you have registered to do business with the federal government? Raise your hands. Okay, just a couple of you. So this may be a new marketplace for you to consider. What I do with the Small Business Administration is I work with small businesses that are interested in doing business with the federal government. I work primarily with one of our small business programs called the 8A program, but SBA also does eligibility and implementation for the Hub Zone program and the federal women-owned small business program. So I have a lot of knowledge about all 3. But it should be something that your business considers if they are interested in doing business with the federal government. I say federal because the state, cities, counties all have separate processes for how to go about doing business.
Jill, can you share a little bit, what is 8A specifically as well as HubZone?
8A is a social and economic disadvantage business certification that can be used in government contracting. The social disadvantage means that you belong to one of 4 key designated groups, including African American, Hispanic, Native American, and Asian, or you have to fill out the preponderance of the evidence, how you've experienced hardship. So it's not just a race-based certification. There's also an economic disadvantage associated with the 8A program. The disadvantaged business owner cannot have more than $250,000 or less in personal assets, excluding your primary residence and your business. So for the 8A program, it has to be 51% owned and controlled by a U.S. citizen. And I can get a little bit more detailed about the program if you're interested, but again, the number one thing that I try and tell business owners, you first have to have the interest in doing business with the federal government. It's the only certification program that we have that has an expiration date. So when you get into the 8A program, you have 9 years from the time you get in until you graduate, whether you're ready or not. And 9 years sounds like a long time, but it takes a long time to get to know the federal government marketplace as well. So I'll switch a little bit to HubZone. So 8A was the first one. The second one is the HubZone program. And HubZone stands for Historically Underutilized Business Zone. And it's not necessarily what I would call a HUD zone. So it's not necessarily an area of town where you would be afraid to drive after like 8 p.m. There are sections of HubZone that would be quite unexpected. Like we still have, the last time I checked, parts of Easton were HubZone. The Arena District is still HubZone, although I'm imagining that'll probably graduate pretty soon. But HubZone, there is a 3% set aside for government contracting. For 8A, there's 5%. And HubZone is based on where your principal office is located, and then 35% of your employees must reside in a HubZone. And this program is good, again, for federal government contracting.
How do I find out if I'm in a hub zone, Jill?
Actually, the SBA has a very good websites. I know people hate to hear, oh, you're just going to throw me at a website. No, how many times do I hear, go to a website? Well, I'm going to tell you to go to a website, and I'm sorry. But the HubZone website is very good. It's sba.gov/HubZone. One thing I want to tell you about HubZone, it's very, very specific. You might be across the street from a HubZone, but not in a HubZone. Mm-hmm. It's by U.S. Census tract. Actually, there's two ways for HubZone. There are sometimes entire counties that are designated HubZone, and there are urban areas or little pockets of HubZone throughout cities. So you may think that you're in a HubZone. If you go to sba.gov/HubZone, there's a section where you can click on HubZone Maps. Plug in your address. It's really that specific. I mean, we have people that call in and say, oh, well, I'm on Fifth Avenue. Well, parts of Fifth Avenue in Columbus are HubZone and parts are not. Same thing with Broad Street. Really, if you're inside a 270, it's worth looking at. If your office is located in New Albany, Worthington, we can almost know, I don't think it's in a HubZone, but we can double check. So it's really 51% owned and controlled by a U.S. citizen. Principal office must be located in a HubZone, and 35% of your employees must reside in a HubZone. And it's the federal certification that the government is having the hardest time reaching their goal because it's very hard to maintain certification. That 35% of employees residing in a HubZone can be quite difficult to maintain, especially if you have 3 employees. Because if you have 3 employees, even if you have 1 in a HubZone, that's 33.3%. And I used to work with another organization called PTAC prior to my time in SBA. And I know this isn't about SBA, so I'm going to wrap it up and let other people talk as well. But I worked with a firm that had 34.9% of her employees. And I made the mistake of saying, well, I'm sure they'll round up for that. They did not. Okay, so HubZone is it's a black and white program. But we try and work with firms to give them our best practices for maintaining that certification because, like Mary mentioned, if you can go through the agony of these certifications, there can be a payoff.
Thank you. Okay. Angela.
Okay. Hi, I'm Angela Horn, CEO of MediaScript. 5 years ago, Ron and I, who actually is back there filming, started the organization. We started out primarily initially as a e-learning compliance-based training company. Over the course of the 5 years, we've grown into video production services, really doing more image pieces on organizations, storytelling about their missions, social impacts, and things like that, to the compliance-based training again, and into some event services. We are a women-owned certified business. I have that extra 1%, because as Ron says, I control pretty much everything in the house anyway, so why not the business as well? For me, certification has been just a great resource in the sense of the women that I meet, that maybe we can do teaming with. I think I have a little different perspective. I haven't actually, personally, our company has not actually gotten a contract as a prime. We do it more as a sub. So we team with organizations, so I think that that's going to give you a different perspective. A lot of organizations start out thinking they're going to go after that large contract. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to register and get my certifications and get into the federal databases, and the contracts are just going to come. I think there is that place for organizations to realize that there's opportunities to partner with other organizations and get that message out and benefit from it.
Nicole?
Good morning. My name is Nicole Anthony Townsend. I'm the president of AQE Solutions, and I think I was invited because I'm your case study. I have been a federal contractor for the past 17 years. We are a graduate of the 8A program. We're a small women-owned business. The kind of work that we provide, or kind of services we provide to the federal government are research and evaluation, training and technical assistance, and logistics and meeting support. We do that in 2 core areas around eliminating health disparities and reducing educational inequities. So we're the social scientists trying to save the world. The agencies that we've done our primary work with are around HHS agencies and the United States Agency for International Development. So I probably have touched all of the websites my fellow panelists has talked about, and I would agree that they are extremely resourceful. I've also pulled my hair out keeping on top of all of the paperwork that's required to be in these programs. What I'd like to offer is the benefit of my success, but also really the things that have been my biggest challenges. I think that federal contracting is an awesome component of your business, but don't believe that it necessarily should be your 100% of your business.
So tell us why.
Well, federal government, like we're all familiar with, has its ebbs and flows. When the economy tanks, the federal government tightens its belt. And if 100% of your business comes from an agency whose belt is tightened, your belt is tightened. And so that important balance between your commercial clients and your federal business and your state and local business, I think, is important as you're planning your business strategy. For us, we suffered we were happy because we got our first 8A contract soon after our 8A status was granted. And it was a multi-million-dollar contract for 3 years doing research. We were totally excited. But down the line, you realize 90% of your business becomes federal business. And coming off of you haven't done a whole lot of investment in growing your commercial side, which is why the 9-year program is so important. The first 4 years, and correct me if I'm wrong, is about developing and getting your relationships with the federal government and really getting your feet wet. The last 5 years is get off the government. And if you haven't, I think as Jill mentioned, the teaming, if you haven't started to think about, okay, when you don't have this preferential treatment at the federal level, do you have relationships with larger businesses to become what I consider our business motto? We're the sexiest subcontractor you ever want to meet. Because
I like that.
we're not committed to, our strategy is not to be the prime. Not that it's not a great place to sit, but it comes with a whole lot. And I think for us, it was in our best interest to become the preferred partner to some of the large companies that are in our NAAQS code. So Battelle, Westat, those are the companies that we market ourselves to. And so if I were to give any thought to what you're thinking, if you're looking, I would look at your competition and then become very aware of how to work with them.
So how many people in this room are business owners? Already existing business owners? So very few of you raised your hands earlier that you're already doing business with the government. So how many are hoping to really understand how to get in business and secure the government as one of their clients? Okay, so you just heard from two organizations. I'm going to ask you each the same question. How can you assist the business owners in this room prepare for and secure federal contracts? And give us an example of someone you've helped.
Well,
Madi.
What we do is we expedite the WOSB certification process. The only caveat is you must become WBE certified before we can process your WOSB certification. Once we have completed your certification, we are holding matchmaking sessions, and we are on the SBA's mailing list. We send out the calendar of events. We get bids come across. We send those out to our WBEs. And we are working very hard to try to connect everyone. One of our WBEs just became WBE and WOSB certified this last year, and she's already managed to land a federal contract with the Army Corps of Engineers.
Okay. By the way, if people are throwing out acronyms you don't know, please raise your hand. Let us know that you need us to explain it. So you do more than just help them get certified. You actually help connect them.
Well, we try to connect them with the corporations, which is where the Women's Business Enterprise certification comes in. The Women-Owned Small Business certification obviously is for the federal government. We are constantly attending events. We are constantly in touch with the SBA and with the PTAC offices to find out what is going on that we can pass on to our WBEs so that they are aware these things are happening. And if they have an interest, then they can attend those certain events. If we hear about a contract that someone is needing a partner for, we will send that information out. It's just a matter of communication on our part. We handle the certification process for you, but then we also communicate things that we hear about or that we learn about so that you are aware that they are out there.
Okay. Jill, same question.
When we have firms that come in and ask about one of the small business programs like HubZone 8A or Women Owned, I try to have that firm take a step back and I ask, have you registered in SAM? Do you know who your federal government marketplace is? Because if you haven't done those things yet, the certifications will just be hanging, waiting until you understand the federal government marketplace. I saw my PTAC colleague here. She somehow escaped. How many of you have heard of PTAC? Some of you have. Okay. The Procurement Technical Assistance Center is that acronym. And what they do is assist you in everything from, I want to do business with the government, I don't know where to start, to helping you navigate some of the federal websites like FedBizOps or the Federal Procurement Data System, or how to find procurement forecasts, because unfortunately the burden is on the business on identifying federal customers. You may have all of the certifications that each level of government requires, but if you haven't been intentional about marketing yourself to these agencies, they aren't going to know about you. And they aren't going to find you just based on your SAM registration. So, yes.
I'm sorry, what's SAM?
Thank you. SAM is the portal by which you become a federal vendor.
And it stands for?
The System for Award Management. And you can't say the government doesn't have a sense of humor. When you go there, it's a big Uncle Sam hat.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're trying to lighten the burden. But SAM is if you have the interest in doing business with the government, you have to register in SAM because that's how the federal government pays you. It's also how the federal government conducts a lot of their market research on you is through SAM. The other important aspect of SAM is that it's tied into the SBA's database, which is called the Dynamic Small Business Search. It should reverse that. SBA is tied into SAM, not reverse. But the federal government procurement process requires something called market research, so it's fair and open competition. So the market research requires agencies to actually research who they intend to do business with. One of the easiest ways for them to do that, they never have to contact you, which they love, is to go through SAM or to look at your SBA profile. So part of what I do, or what we do at SBA, is try to educate you of the process, because if you understand the process, you're in a very small minority of businesses that decide to stick with it, because it is very aggravating. It can be.
How many people here have registered in SAM? Okay, how many are still now going to find out what that is and register? Okay. It takes time. That was my frustration, was getting registered in SAM, just so you know. So it is a pain. So if you want someone to complain to, Shonda Harris at PTAC is a great person to complain to. Yes.
Hi, I'm Mary Korn, and I can't say enough good things about Jill. She has been tremendous. Because when I started my company about 10 years ago, she painstakingly helped me fill out the entire process. Because I tried to do it myself, and I couldn't. So she was tremendous.
They become your best friends. They really will, and they are really
Thank you, Mary.
responsive.
Well, and I should say, prior to being with SBA, I was with PTAC. And when you're in my role with PTAC, I had a lot more ability of the types of services that I could provide, because PTAC can walk you through all levels of government, whether it's city, county, state, federal, and that's where my knowledge base came from. At SBA, I also have an important role, but it's a little bit more limited in terms of the types of resources that I provide. I work primarily with 8A certified firms.
Okay. So we're going to switch over now. Yes.
So is PTEC a government?
It is funded by the Department of Defense. It is a nonprofit, so it's not a government agency, but it's funded in part by the Department of Defense, and the PTACs in Ohio also get funding from the Development Services Agency. So it's an effort between two levels of government and the Ohio University. So it's free of charge to you.
Yes.
Is the MBE and WBE interchangeable?
No.
No, MBE is for state contracts, and it's strictly race-based. It's minority business enterprise. WBE can be offered at cities, and corporations recognize it, correct? And it's woman-owned, so that's a women's business enterprise.
And she can have both.
Yes.
Yes, you can
Oh,
have
Shonda's back.
Hi, Shonda.
Hey, I
Okay,
just
we're gonna
talked
we're gonna
about
go
you.
back to more
Okay.
questions, but I want to let the two business owners speak. So the question I have for our two business owners is, how has certification and organizations such as these two helped you with receiving federal contracts? And we're gonna do short answers so we can get questions in too, because Jill talks a lot.
Okay. So for me, I think it's about three key components. It's about being prepared for the opportunities, aligning yourselves with organizations, and then making those connections. And I'm going to touch just briefly on each one of those and how it's worked for me. Monty can tell you I'm a big proponent of ORV and the certification process. I am involved in many different committees with that organization. And ORV is the Ohio River Valley Women's Business Council, and that is the
That's Monty.
regional partner organization of WeBank. It certifies all women-owned businesses in Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky. So I don't know if many of you saw the talk yesterday with Darla King with King Business Interiors. And she's actually told me this story before, but I just found it really interesting that she talked about with Honda called her one day, several years after she actually got her WBE certification, and she shared this again with me last night and told me I could use it, so. But she got a call from a buyer one day at Honda and said, are you women-owned? And she said, yes, I am. And she said, do you have your certification? And she said, yes, I do. And she said, oh, great, I have one less thing on my plate because I was just charged with finding a new furniture supplier that was women-owned. So if she had not had that certification, she could have lost that client because, as many of you may know who've ever gone through the certification process, there's no magic fairy that just waves a wand and you get certified. It is a long, tedious process. And being prepared in that way has really, I think, benefited a lot of women-owned businesses, and definitely me as well. Secondly, our business, MediaScript's business, is a little different in that we provide video production and compliance-based training services. It's not something that typically a federal agency is just going to need that product or service. We're typically going to align ourselves with a subject matter expert or someone in that field that's providing that training, and it's a way for for them to write us into a contract. So I think that is important. It is really, at one point, it was about 50% of our business came through some sort of federal contract or grant. And then finally, aligning yourself with an organization like WeBank is just great. I went to my first WeBank national conference last year. I actually got to have a one-on-one meeting with a Fannie Mae representative and was actually, I still keep in contact with her. I've been invited to summits to go to DC based on my NAICS codes and things. So I think it's just making those connections.
Okay, Nicole?
The question was, how has the SBA,
How's certification
Certification.
and organizations such as these two helped you secure government contracts?
the certification, my 8A certification opened the door to my first federal contract. It made it simpler for the customer, that particular customer, Centers for Disease Control, wanted to use us, but there were lots of people in the space that did the same kind of work, but it made it easier for the customer to tailor the opportunity for a small business. So they worked with contracts office to say, we like this company and they're 8A certified. And the contracting officer says, oh, great, that's much easier for us.
Right.
Because we have certain requirements to meet and they fall within our requirements, they meet your needs, it worked out great. So that's when the marriage works. We have a lot of, each federal agency that I work with has an OSDBU, and I'm gonna try and, the OSDBU, the Office of Disadvantaged Small Business, this is your rep in that building or in that agency. So those are the people that I really work with. They are picking up the phone saying, Nicole, they're sending me emails, there are procurements in our agency that are coming out that you need to consider. So when they reach out to you, it could be in a pre-solicitation phase or a sources sought.
Mm-hmm.
And a sources sought phase, and I'll stop here, is the government's trying to find out if there are small, disadvantaged, women-owned businesses out there that can do this scope of work.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you an opportunity to put together a 3 to 10 page paper on we can do this work, and here's how we've done it in the past. And if you go into the solicitation phase, we'd be ready to do it.
I think that's a great point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you've heard a little bit about the organizations, a little bit about businesses that have used the services. What questions do you have as you're either in the process or thinking about the process?
Thank you. This question is for Jill. I'm Tamara with Halcyon Solutions. Simon says hello. And so my question is, how long does it take to get that 8A certification? What's the
It depends. It really does depend because, as Nicole, how long did it take you?
We were special.
Oh, she was special.
I say that because we used a technical assistance, a consultant, to help us put our package
Okay.
together, who had a relationship, and so we got our 8A within 90 days.
Oh my
It
Wow.
can take anywhere
That's
from 90 days to longer than that. And so I will say, all humor aside, is that the more clear cut the applicant, the easier it is for the SBA to process it. When I mean clear cut, if it's 51% owned and controlled by a disadvantaged individual, and that disadvantaged individual only has ownership in one business, if they have ownership in multiple businesses, and they have to look at affiliations, if there are multiple partners to the business, it can get complex. So the more complex an application, the longer that it can take. But we have a couple of firms that got in within 6 weeks, and we have some that's 8, 9 months. Yes.
Jill, can I-
Yes.
Is it the rule that you can still, if you have a pending opportunity that the government wants to award to you, can the process be expedited?
We would try. Yeah, if the firm had marketed themselves and had identified the customer really wanted to award an 8A contract, we at the district level would do what we could. All of the 8A applications are processed in San Francisco for the state of Ohio, so we would try, but no guarantees.
Certainly.
Question back here.
If you're in the 8A program and you graduated, are you still considered a small disadvantaged business? And if so, how long are you allowed?
You are for 3 years. But it's what has happened with the Small Disadvantaged Business Program, that is a self-certification. SBA used to have an actual certification process for SDB. There isn't one now. So when you register your business in SAM, you can self-certify as an SDB. There are not set-asides for SDB at the federal level, but we get questions all the time for example, for subcontracting agreements. Sometimes whomever you're subcontracting to will ask if you're an SDB. But if you're 8A certified, you are automatically SDB certified for 3 years after you graduate.
Okay. What other questions do we have? Yes.
When you ask the question, are you certified to do business with the federal government? What are you saying? I mean, how do you, we make certified, we have lots of certifications, but when you say, are you registered to do business with the federal government, what is that?
SAM.
Sam.
That's Sam.
As long as you're in SAM.
And you also have to have a cage code and all those other things.
You don't need any of those certifications to start bidding projects.
Yeah.
As soon as you have registered in SAM, you can start looking at opportunities, and I would suggest reaching out to a PTAC, and Shonda, I talked about you, if you can raise your hand, please.
Can you stand up, Shonda?
Yeah, she's our Columbus PTAC counselor. I have an awful lot of firms that say, I can't bid on contracts because I'm not woman-owned certified, or I'm not 8A. It doesn't matter. As long as you are a small bit, you can be any business and bid on contracts. The time is now. I mean, you want to register first, get to know the marketplace, and see about your certifications at the same time.
And I'm going to give a nice plug for Shonda, because Shonda is one of the reasons why I secured the contract that I did. So I was in SAM. I had everything done. I was really proud of myself. I actually double-checked it when I hired my grant writer and paid her to write my grant. And then, lo and behold, I got the phone call that said, we want to award you, but you're missing this piece in SAM. And I said, no, I'm not. Don't know where it went, but all of a sudden, that little checkbox, and that's all it was not there anymore. So I had 1 day to resolve the problem. So I called SBA, I called Shonda, I called everybody. I had cell phones. I called people on their cell phones. I emailed them. I'm not going to lose a contract because of a checkbox. And she worked with me. That she double-checked to make sure that it was updated, which is not something I asked her to do, but she kept on top of it. So she is your best friend. These guys are your best friends. If you're looking for, you're going through it and you're struggling, reach out to people who have gone through it, because they are great for giving you advice. So that was my plug. What other questions do we have? Back here.
What are some major events that you recommend where you can identify government opportunities?
That's a very good question. Within the state of Ohio, there is an annual event called the Ohio Business Matchmaker, and that is every April. It's
That's
gonna
usually
be,
in Dayton, right?
Yes, yep, it's going to be in Dayton at the Nutter Center, the 27th and 28th of April. Yes.
And you
That's what I
said that
did, the
WeBank
28th
does an
and
event
29th.
as well?
Well, ORV has an annual conference every year that's also always in April, but WeBank itself has a major conference every June.
Okay.
And at each of these conferences, there are matchmaking sessions. We call them Meet the Buyer sessions, that if there are federal procurement officers there, which occasionally we do have some attend. Corporations send representatives. These are matchmaking sessions that give you a few minutes to talk with each of the representatives and pretty much sell your company to them.
But I will add, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
But I will add to the national conference, having gone through that process, you're not, just because you register for the conference, you're not guaranteed a one-on-one.
Right.
It is based on your products and services, and in that case, that's where I actually met the representative for Fannie Mae. And since then, she has given me the link to, of course, register through their supplier diversity portal, and I've been invited to 3 different summits.
And you guys also mentioned working with a prime.
Yes.
Yes. There,
So are there ways that you meet people that you could partner with?
Yeah, definitely WeBank is a great source, and other networking events just.
there are 2 ways that I would recommend getting in front of your customer. Each agency has a monthly open house where you get to meet program people. Program folks are the people who make the art, who start crafting the RFP about the services that they're in need of. This is just from my experience. The contracting people want to help businesses come in and work with the agency. Their hearts are in the right place, but oftentimes they don't have it's not in their purview to decide what the scope of work looks like or how to match your services to what the government's needs are. So it's really getting in front of the program people to figure out what kind of solutions you can offer. So those monthly forums that they have, you can go online. It's free to go to all of them. It may take some investment if your agency that you're committed to, maybe NASA or something, it may not be in this area, but they may have a workshop or may have a forum that's local or in your region. But going to the actual agency that you're looking to do work in and finding out when they're having their forums. There's also websites that they post their information. They have simplified acquisitions boards. So there's a lot. If you drill down to the agency or agencies that you're interested in, I would figure out where they're hosting dialogues as well.
Yes.
Do you have to be in business a certain length of time to get a federal contract, or are new businesses considered as well?
There's no set time being in business, but when you are looking at federal opportunities, you want to position yourself for success. And what I mean by that is if you're brand new, I would go out for smaller projects. And it may be, Nicole mentioned the simplified acquisition threshold. That's anything that's $150,000 and below. I've heard from firms that say, oh, I just love to get that $5 million contract. If your revenues are $40,000, you're not going to be prepared for a $5 million
For
contract.
scaling up to that level.
Yeah, you have to plan on how you're going to grow your business and look at cities, counties, and I can't emphasize those enough because they have smaller scale projects. But no, there's no set time being in business before you can start bidding on projects.
But is there a set time for getting certified?
Yes, some of them. 8A. 8A has a requirement of being in business for 2 years and generating sales for 2 years, but there is a waiver. So if you have generated significant sales within your first year in business, you can request a waiver. HubZone doesn't have a set period of time in business. Woman-owned,
Marty?
I don't think it does.
No.
There's no set time?
The WBE and the WOSB, neither of those have a set time frame. We have actually certified several startup businesses within the last year.
Okay.
One more question.
Mm-hmm.
Just to add to that. If you have owned your company for 4 years, that you're doing business as a new entity, and it's only been open a couple of months, but you have 22 years experience in that field, and you actually operated another company in another state, would you then recommend doing a federal contract or no?
It just depends again. When a federal proposal is being reviewed by a contracting team, they'll take into consideration the past performance of the company. You, as the owner of the company, because you have 22 years of experience in your field, would be considered, but the actual companies with the experience would be considered first.
Okay, I had a question over here.
I find one of the biggest challenges is, when you register with companies or the government, they have the commodity codes, the NAICS codes. They are just like bizarre.
Uh-huh.
And there's nothing that even really defines what you do, and you're just trying to guess here, here, here. And this is how they pick sometimes how they,
Do
who
their
they
research.
choose, where they're
Yes.
gonna send the emails for bids. And I think that is
Correct.
just
And you have to also constantly go in and update. Because I will say, our business this year, we sort of diversified some of the products and services that we offer, and so now I've got to sit down, and my goal is by the end of the month to sit down and go through every agency as well as corporation and privately held companies that I've dealt with and change all of that, because and it's so important to even do that with WeBank and any of the other certifications that you may have, and it really focus in on those keywords. Because sometimes there are opportunities for you to not just list your codes, but also keywords that may pertain a little bit more to your industry. Because as I found out 5 years ago when we started, there is no code for e-learning or online learning. There's nothing. I'm a very open, broad type of thing.
So from the organizations, WeBank, SBA, PTEX, and Student Room, do you guys assist with people to define what their NAICS codes would be?
Yes.
You will do that?
I work with our applicants, especially when they are first applying. What we are looking for is their primary revenue source, and that's what the Women-Owned Small Business Certification looks for as well. That's how that is based, is on their primary revenue source. So I work with all of our applicants if they are having issues determining what their NAICS code or what their UNSPSC codes, which is the United Nations Standardized Product, and there I get lost.
Service code?
Service codes.
Okay.
I help them determine by asking key questions, and I have 2 websites that I can go to, and I can help them search for the proper codes. Because part of the certification process that we do is we are comparing the code they put on their application to the code that's on their tax return, and also comparing it to their revenue source to determine that that is the correct code for them.
Nicole, do you have anything to add to that?
Outside of, it's really a question to the group. Are many of you already surfing through FBO.gov? Have you looked at opportunities? Okay, so FBO.gov. It was called FedBizOp. FBO, Federal Business Opportunity.gov. That is where it is free. You'll see that you'll get lots of emails from marketers trying to tell you they can help you find government contracts. You can help you find government contracts too. But you have the ability to pre-select a search that'll send you an email every day of all opportunities in your code. And it'll come and you'll get sick of it, but you'll get those opportunities. You'll start to get a feel for the business, that the kinds of services they're looking for, and the kinds of agencies that are looking for your types of services. Even if you don't apply, you'll start to weed out who you're not. Okay, you're going to stop getting things from NASA because you're really not going to sell there. You know what I mean? To get a feel for that, there's another site, Fedbid. Fedbid.com, FEDBID.com. Another free site to register for. I know the panelists have a lot of state information, but these are some of the places that you can start to get a feel and learn more about the customer that you're potentially going to serve. If you want to figure out who your competition is, I often go to usaspending.gov to find out where they spent their money the last 5 years. Who were the biggest contractors? So that you can become a good subcontractor to start to get your feet wet. Before, if you don't jump out there and get your direct award, your first direct award, it's great to become a subcontractor to learn, and just take put a toe in the water. And there's another, I think those are the 3 top things that I wanted to make sure, to give you some tools and some sites to go to and spend some time. Have your team sit around the table and say, this is what we found. The process of figuring out if you should invest your time, your company's time and resources in preparing a proposal is really important. Going after everything is a lot of energy and a lot of resources. So the better you become at weeding out what you don't want to spend energy and resources on, the better for the business.
So what I'm hearing you say is just like if you're looking at regular customers, it's really about your target audience and narrowing your focus and finding your niche.
Absolutely.
Okay. It is 11:50. Do we have one final question?
Just one. Do they all have tables in the, whatever it's called out here?
Yeah, exhibitor tables?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for joining us. I hope you got a lot out of it. Please pay attention to the panelists as well as Jill, again, can raise her hand.